Queensland and River City Labs. It's my pleasure to welcome you here tonight to our International Women's Day event on diversity and inclusion in tech. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Holly Bretherton. I'm the State Manager of ACS Queensland, and it's a pleasure to see you all here tonight. So I'd firstly like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'll move quickly now through some housekeeping points. So firstly and most importantly, just ensure you've signed in on the COVID Safe app at the door and had your name ticked off. In the case of an emergency, just follow the green exit signs around to your right here at the back of the room, through the fire doors and out through the fire stairs there. Obviously in the COVID environment, hand and coughing hygiene is important, so there are plenty of hand sanitisers available and tissues. If you are feeling unwell, we would ask that you just let us know at the registration desk there. And yeah, please immediately if that would be okay. So bathrooms are located just past the lifts to your left, and that just sort of wraps up the housekeeping there. So we're very fortunate tonight to welcome an incredibly diverse panel, and we're going to explore tech career pathways, upskilling and reskilling at any age, inspirational stories, and tips for overcoming career challenges. Collectively, we're also going to discuss how we can better foster diversity and inclusion across age, any background, any gender, along with neurodiversity as well. And we're also going to showcase some fantastic work being done by some of our panellists in their organisations, along with the work of the ACS Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So I might just start quickly now by framing some key statistics that are available in the ACS Digital Pulse report. We release that report on an annual basis, and essentially it's a stock take of the health of the ICT sector and where there's growth, what the workforce development patterns look like. So here are some of the stats, and some of them are a little bit sobering. In the 2020 edition, we can see we had a 29% representation of women in tech. And in other occupations, we're seeing an average of around 44%, and even up to 50% in some professions like law and medicine. We're also seeing an 18% pay gap and much lower completion rates in tertiary education, as well as an underrepresentation of older workers. So older workers-wise, we're looking at around a 12% representation compared to 15% and above in other industries. But on the upside, we are witness to some amazing opportunities for the tech sector, including a forecast of 100,000 new tech roles by 2024. Australia is also a net exporter of tech, and with the 5G rollout, we're looking at around $65 billion worth of growth over the next 5 years. And as we know, COVID really has accelerated the demand for tech and for tech skills, and has really brought that forward by a good 10 years. So on that positive note, I'd like to introduce our MC for this evening, Pauline Fetaui. Pauline is the General Manager of River City Labs, and she joined ACS to continue to pursue her two passions, which are people creating and living their dreams and progressing innovative technologies for the advancement of our society. Pauline is really well seasoned in the startup space, so she has her own startup, Chihu, which is an integrated assistant app designed to help people juggle smarter whilst helping to stay connected to the most important tribes in our lives. Pauline also co-founded and hosts Splash of Colour, which is a podcast and passion project hosting authentic conversations about navigating the reality of being a human as we all try to do our best. Whilst building Chihu and Splash of Colour, Pauline joined River City Labs after 19 years in digital enterprise change leadership across tech, banking, super, government, insurance. That's pretty much the whole of the industry is covered. So without further ado, over to you, Pauline.
Thank you. That's all a bit awkward. Can you hear me okay? It sounds very illustrious, but at the end of the day, I was just another human juggling one step at a time, or 10 steps backwards, 2 steps forwards, and all of that sideways stuff that happens. So first, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Holly, for organising this wonderful event, and thank you to our panellists here tonight. I think we are going to have a wonderful dialogue and hopefully some discourse, because I kind of like that, to talk about what's going on in diversity and inclusion. So let's talk a bit about those stats, I think, after we do a bit of an introduction. So I'd love to start off with Johnny on the end there. If you can just tell us who you are, what your role is, a bit of your background, and then we'll move along the panel back towards me.
Sure, no worries, thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming in on such an important topic, I think, today on International Women's Day. My name is Johnny Serrano and I'm the CIO of GroundProbe, a mining technology company. GroundProbe was awarded the most innovative company in Australia in 2018-2019. But I guess also the role that I also play is I'm also the National Diversity and Inclusion Committee for the ACS, and I'm really passionate about this topic in general, diversity. I've seen it firsthand, how diversity brings innovation in technology, and so that's why I'm here and really excited to be with all these fellow panelists as well.
Thank you, Johnny.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Padma Gadiyar. Thank you, Pauline, for having me here today. I am the CEO and founder of Smilo.ai. I'm a dentist by profession, and with Smilo we want to get dentists in everybody's pocket, making oral healthcare available for everyone, anytime, any place, affordable, accessible. I must say, I come from a profession where we are 53% women dentists and mainly women dominated. But entering into tech, I could see the why diversity and inclusion and all this is so important, because I had not felt that before. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity and I'm really enjoying this.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'm really humbled to be here this evening, so thank you, Pauline, for having me, and thank you everyone for coming along. So my name is Renee Chapel, and I'm a product owner within BHP's Digital Factory. I think just stepping back a little bit is I've been in technology for pretty much my whole career, and I've been on the side where I've always been the only woman in majority and many of my teams. So I'm really happy to be able to share my experiences tonight, because I've definitely started to see a shift, especially around the last few years. And talking around stats, as I was just saying earlier, that in Digital Factory, which is a new area in BHP, our team is made up of 50-50 gender balance and also 12 nationalities. So it's just an amazing space to be in, and just to be able to share those insights of what it was to where it could be. I'm really happy to be able to share that tonight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joanna Killalea-Walford. I'm an account director at Datacom Systems. I've been working in IT for over 25 years, so been around for a wee bit, and my goal is that my daughter and granddaughters, I want them to have an easier road than I had to do something that I love. As I look at where I started, I was very lucky when I first started in IT. I worked for an unusual government organisation where there was more women in IT than men, and it's never happened since. So I want that to change, not just on the service desk, but in the technical areas and upwards. So pleased to be here, spreading the word.
Love it. Linda. Hi, my name's Linda. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm a solutions analyst for Impact Group, and I've had a very diverse career throughout financial services, telecoms, travel, and as an analyst, I've worn a lot of different hats within the software delivery lifecycle and projects, and so I've been involved in projects right from the start when they're little ideas on a PowerPoint page to actually delivering products to end customers. As a person who's on the ground, I've definitely resonate with what Renee had said about being the only female as part of delivery teams, and so I'm very excited to share my experiences with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me to be here, Pauline and Holly, and thank you very much everyone for coming. So my name's Nicola Steel. I'm founder of JJP Talent Solutions, which is an IT and digital, I can't speak today, recruitment company. I've been recruiting for over 22 years. I would say in the turn of the century, as in the early 2000s, I probably recruited a handful of women, probably not even as much as that. So we are actually seeing some really great progress, but there is a lot of work to do. Also, I'm the preferred recruitment partner to both ACS and River City Labs, and my passions are building great tech teams, really high-performing teams, and also advancing people's careers. And within that, diversity, whether it be demographic diversity and also cognitive diversity as well. So I'm really looking forward to a very robust discussion today. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So as you can tell, we've got a great diverse group and knowledge and experience on the panel. So I'm actually going to throw it over to you, Jo, to kick off. And the reason is because of something you said in your intro. You said you saw something that actually occurred for the better and you haven't seen it since in your previous, I think it was your previous employee. What was that and why was that?
So my first IT role was for the New Zealand Treasury Department, and this was 26 years ago, and there were 3 men and 5 women in that IT organisation, and they back then already knew that by having a diverse group of people working together, they were going to get the best outcomes. So not only did they encourage you to be yourselves in the office, and they were for a government organisation well ahead of their time, but they also encouraged you to do every different technology. So I was extremely lucky. I had a very strong leader who believed in diversity and supported women, but then also insisted that even though I specialised in Windows and servers, that I did networking, I did service desk, I did training, and from that I actually found I had really good people skills, and that helped me for my next job, where I ended up doing a lot of training and dealing with people, and it helped drive a path. And so it was a long time ago, but unfortunately I've worked in a lot of really big IT companies since, and I've never seen that same balance.
And what do you think are some of the things that are blocking that at the moment?
There's a few things. I find that we're not telling girls young enough that IT is for them. I've been out personally and been to secondary schools and colleges in New Zealand and gone around and presented my story. My story is quite different because I kind of was a bit aimless. I got pregnant, had a daughter, realised the world didn't revolve around me, went back to school, learned IT, and then went back to the workplace, and I was lucky enough to find something I really loved. So I like to go to schools and tell kids, you know, this is for you, you can do this, it's an exciting thing. I've been around the world, I've done IT, but I think we're leaving it too late. We're not telling really little kids, and they've already got perceptions, and they're already watching movies, and they're already seeing that they don't belong there. So I think even as young as preschool, get them in front of a computer. They already use iPads, they probably use your iPhones, right? They steal them right out of your handbags, and they start using it. So start using their predisposition for technology now to show that they can drive it, they can change it, and make it something more about them. Give them role models.
Love it. Renee, so I'm going to go to you. I know BHP has done a lot, not only in the digital factory, but around diversity. In total, you quoted some stats. Given the current stats of 29%, what do you think are some of the barriers? And then maybe if you can tell a bit of the journey that BHP has had.
Yeah, sure. I think from some of the barriers perspective, it's really around people backing themselves and the experience they have and how that can contribute to a career in technology. So I think if you look at a lot of the job advertisements, and there's all these specific skills that you need, whether it's a design role or a technical development role, if you don't tick all those boxes, a lot of people are like, no, I actually can't do all that, so I'm not going to apply. And it's really that mindset shift that actually you don't need to tick all those boxes. You just need to have a little bit of experience and faith in yourself, and know that whatever you've done can contribute to the industry or where you want to work. And I think a good example too is I came from the financial industry, still with a technology background, and went into the mining industry, and same thing. I was like, how am I going to know mining technology? I don't know. And I was like, I'll just apply and see what happens, and then I got it. But it wasn't a purposeful, I know I can do A, B, C, D. So I think that's one of the barriers, is that mindset is if you don't have 100% of that experience or that qualifications, still go for it. And I know BHP has been very purposeful in its strategy in the way that they do recruit and they attract talent, but also retain talent. And I think a good example is the She Codes program that we pair with. And that's been, I think, about 3 years now. We've been working with that program. And basically what they did is they identified that, you know, there needs to be a pathway that people can get some minimal experience in technology. So a program was developed in conjunction with BHP to go, what is the core technology pieces that, you know, a person would need to go to have to get into the industry. And it's been a really successful program because it's not only around being able to uplift that capability in technology within BHP, it's also open to external applicants as well. So it's being able to open that wider into the industry and get people the ability to have their foot in and get a bit of experience to go for those technology roles.
Yeah, I know firsthand. I watched your pitch for the last cohort, I think it was in December, when everyone was allowed to come back and network. And I think it was quite amazing to see the diverse regional areas who have also applied, so females who are working across in different industries, coming and being part of the She Codes program with BHP. So it's an amazing thing you're doing, and I think also it's, in addition to backing yourself, it sounds like BHP are purposely taking a step to create a space for females specifically. So that's really good. And I would love to, and I was going to go over to you, Johnny, and love to talk a bit about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I'd just first of all like to reinforce what you said there, Renee. I do a lot of mentoring, and I hear a lot about Imposter Syndrome, or feel like I'm an imposter, there's a job going in and can only do 5 of the 10 things, therefore I will not apply. Whereas I know a lot of males that I do mentor, where I've got 5 of those things, I'm definitely applying. I mean, and I think that definitely exists as a barrier. And so I think one of the things that we're obviously doing is we're providing mentorship, and we've got programs in place where we talk about language bias, languages in employment or job ads. But it's also identifying successes and female successes for our leadership team. And the leadership team has really been committed to ensuring that there's equality for all, but ensuring that, you know, while some people may not be in a position right now to take on these leadership positions, that we actually give them the tools, we actually develop them in time to ensure that when we put them in these positions that they're going to be successful. Because the last thing that, you know, you don't want to be given a job just because you're a number. You want to ensure that you're obviously doing well, but you've also got the support and commitment behind. So that's one of the things we've definitely been focusing on.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I think I'd like to get a show of hands. Who's here who are wanting to go into tech? If you feel comfortable, just raise your hands. Who's in tech already? Okay, great. Everyone's in tech. Okay, great. Amazing. Who is more interested in understanding what industry are doing in tech to broaden the diversity mix? Okay, that's good. Good. What have I missed in that? And obviously, I'm sure a whole bunch of people are interested in having their children come forward and go into tech as well, given your backgrounds. So amazing. So we're gonna, I think that's really relevant then if companies are stepping up, like GroundProbe and BHP, it's such a significant step. Go, Joe.
So one of the things that Datacom started to do is, getting them young is great and growing through tech, but we've started a program and it's been running in Adelaide for over a year now. And there's a massive contact centre there. It's about 2,000 people at the moment. And it doesn't matter if you've worked in IT or if you've ever worked at all, we want you, and we want you there. And you start off at a level, but then you learn tech, and then you see how it operates. And you also see what it does for the community, and you see whether or not it's something that inspires you and drives you. And what you also see is there's not just programming, there's not just design, there's not building servers, there's everything. There's people aspect, there's the delivery aspect, there's the relationship aspect. And so we've found that by bringing in these people brand new and fresh, you actually get a whole bunch of new ideas, and it actually gives us excellent access to diversity across the board, disability, different cultures, and of course the gender diversity. So it's been a really good test case, and now we're spreading it around our other regions.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That is a good segue. Nicola, I'd love your views on what is coming up in regards to emerging roles in tech and giving a bit of that understanding of the entry points.
Can I get back to that in just 1 second? Because I was just from Joe's comments as well, which is fabulous. And I think as well, getting people when they're young, like for example, Girl-Shaped Flames, really demystifying tech is great for bringing in, I mean, it's Girl-Shaped Flames is teenage girls, high school girls that are looking at providing that opportunity that it's not just about coding. It could be product management, etc., etc. But on the emerging technology aspects, I think Holly say that we'll be looking for another 150,000 in the tech workforce in Australia in 2025, which is fabulous. It's fantastic. And I think really the key roles will be in AI, machine learning, big data. But what also, rather than just from a technical aspect, I think we'll really need to think about the ethics around that, because AI can do amazing things, but it can also do some really, really bad things. So I think roles in ethics will become more important as well. Another role, and we're seeing it already, is very much in cybersecurity. COVID has created a huge problem there. My sister works for Santander, a big bank in London. When COVID hit, they made a lot of people redundant. They're now hiring 500 cybersecurity experts, which is pretty incredible. So I think that will be a big, it's in London now, and it's certainly growing here, but I think that's only going to get bigger as the crime becomes more sophisticated.
Can I just add really quickly too, and the importance, especially around AI and building the algorithms. And if you have a look at some of the use cases, such as HR and selecting applicants based on that data, if you have bias built into those algorithms and you don't have a diverse set of people that are actually coding them, then you're building bias into the technology. So yeah, going back, it's just so important to be able to have that diverse set of people.
Absolutely, because there was an example, there's a company in the US, a big tech company, I can't remember which one it was, but the algorithm got rid of people with female names, or names like Padma, for example, or that weren't John, Matthew, Dave, because they'd been successful in the past. So the algorithm was not selecting people on that basis.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm interested, Linda, in your perspective of, given your role and also being on the service provider side and servicing so many clients, what are the sort of roles that you're seeing across the industry that are more emerging in also the people who are coming through around you and also in demand?
Yeah, so in the project delivery space, there's so many people who play a huge impact in the delivery of a project. So from the very beginning, you're looking at people who have a product management space, like Nicola had mentioned earlier. And those types of people don't necessarily come from a technical background, but they're looking at more from a customer lens and what is the customer looking for from the product. Then there's traditional analyst types of roles, which I've done before in the past, like systems analyst and business analyst roles. And those are a little bit more technical. Again, talking through being conduits between the business areas and your technical people. And they play a big role in defining what the product is and defining how to solve that problem that the product managers have. So I'm definitely seeing in the last say decade or so that I've been in the industry, there's been an emphasis on the importance of a person who is technical enough to understand how solutions are built, but in a way that addresses the business aspect of how do you solve a problem. So yeah, I think the analysis space has been really thriving in the last couple of years.
I used to call it being technical enough to be dangerous. That's what you really need to get a grasp on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Padma, I'm going to shoot over to you. You've come from the medical industry. You've embarked on your own tech startup, not just any tech startup, but one filled with machine learning and AI. So you've picked the easy one. What made you do that? And do you still want to stick with it?
Yes, for somebody who could not even make her own PowerPoint presentation, AI is super easy. Everybody should do it. But to add to what Linda was telling earlier, along with any technical background, one thing I find is very important, and I see that lacking in the tech sector as well, is the right mindset and attitude. I had no idea, but I knew the vision. I was very clear on what I wanted to achieve, and I was happy to make it work, whether it was making any sacrifices, working hard, leveraging somebody else's expertise, going and asking for help. I was all for it. And to your question, yes, I'm going to stick to it because I finally found my purpose. Because it gives me a perfect blend. Though I'm a dentist, I've done dentistry for 13 years. I never enjoyed dentistry as much as I always enjoyed the business of dentistry. I own multiple practices, I've done M&As, transitions, a lot of things. And I always enjoyed the business of dentistry. And this tech startup with AI gives me a perfect blend of clinical as well as the business of it. Of course, the tech part is the hardest. And coming from a non-technical background, I've been put down a lot of times that saying I'm a non-technical founder, but I'm up to it. I read about it every day. I want to learn. I'm hungry enough. I'm curious enough that I'll make it work.
Good on you, and you can't quit because we're all gunning for you. You touched a little bit on the heartache of some of the barriers. You're in the tech startup ecosystem and space. You're a business founder. How are you overcoming some of those challenges, and what are some of the tools that you could pass on when there's barriers when you're not a tech?
See, there's no fixed formula for it, anything, because the person opposite you could be an investor, could be a customer, could be a joint venture partner, could be anybody. So there's no fixed formula to it. So the best thing is you need to be in that room and ask them questions, and you should have that mentality to make it work. A lot of times I get thrown out of the rooms as well because I am a single founder, and they're like, "Where's your technical founder?" And I don't have answers to it, But I have the technical expertise, I have the technical team who can answer their questions. So we get them to the table. So it's end of the day, whether it's AI, whether it's any mining company or any IT company, it's all about making things work. It's all a people's business. It's not about a profession, it's about people. We are all here to add value. And we are all here to create that ecosystem. So if you ask me, the barriers that I had to face have been huge. You know that I share with you pretty much every single week. But I know I'll get over it and never give up attitude.
Back yourself.
Yeah.
Nice. Johnny, what are some of the things that GroundProbe are doing in regards to this? Because I know you guys are doing a lot. What's going on?
Yeah, into technology, definitely. Look, I think we've all probably hit AI, machine learning, analytics as one of those things. I probably just want to share something that surprised me. I was fortunate enough last year to go to Kelvin Grove with Sue, who's at the front here, sort of a careers day, and we had a lot of kids come through. And one of the things that surprised me about all the young girls who were asking questions, they were all asking questions about cyber security. And they were all interested in cyber security, and I walked away from it going, wow, I wouldn't have thought it was cyber security, and then we're talking about jobs of the future, and that seems to be the biggest interest. I think, out of maybe 10 questions, 9 would have been cyber security as a percentage, And so to me, I think we look at different scenarios of where you can work in IT so broad. There's not just one area, you don't have to code, you can design. But cyber security was one of those things I went, wow, I really thought that more. But one of the barriers I see is that in IT you go, it's such a male-dominated industry, and there can be that barrier I've experienced it myself from my daughter, saying, you know, unfortunately, Daddy, do girls do tech? And, you know, that hit hard to me. And so, you know, I said, well, what am I going to do about that? So I think we've definitely got emerging technologies coming, and there will be, you know, more to come, probably ones that we don't even know exist at the moment, future jobs. And GroundProbe are definitely working on all those things, but and I think you just hit there, it's a people thing, isn't it, really? Technology will come and go and change, and it's always constantly changing. But, you know, the skills that we're really seeing at the moment is being able to put two things together and making it work.
Yeah.
Can't underestimate that.
I agree. When people always ask me, when are we going to stop talking about gender diversity? And I was going, oh, well, when you stop seeing it on TV, that means we've got it. We've got it thereabouts. But the more you see it, we've kind of got some way to go. And so will be so for the next diversity problem, whatever it may be. I'm sure emerging tech in 50 years will create some other thing, maybe the AIs, robots, I don't know. But anyway, sky's the limit. So I'm going to go back to Renee. Given the journey and where She Codes and BHP are now, it's been running for a while. It looks really amazing to see the females that are coming through and the things that they're building during the program. But where was it before it kicked off, and what were some of the key actions that were taken to make it to where it is today?
Yeah, so I think where was it is there was an acknowledgement looking at our statistics that we needed to be able to get a pipeline of women coming through, and the question was the how, and what are the options for us to do that. And so I think, you know, just going back to the basics to go, well, what can we do as an organisation to be able to enable that? And then, you know, having a conversation with She Codes and coming up with that idea and going, actually, this is something that could work. And it's probably something I haven't also touched on is within our space too, in the Digital Factory, we also have a female talent program where we sponsor two females, I believe it's over a 6-month period, to come work in the factory, and they work with specific teams and learn that skill. And then both the ladies that just graduated last week and have a permanent job as well. So I think, you know, where was it? It was a recognition that we need to do better in that space. It was the discussion on how, what is the activities that we can do that will purposefully make change. Because everyone's been in organisations where you go, okay, well, let's you know, start a group where women can come together and collaborate, and there's a lot of those that happen. But how do you take it to that next step? How do you get the confidence, the skills, and get people in the organisation to be able to, I guess, shift the dial? And that's where we are today, is now we've got that base. We're evolving on the She Codes program, started in Perth in Western Australia. It's moved over to Brisbane, which will be kicking that off again. And as we said, we've got the female technology program we have. So now it's like, what are the activities that are going to make action?
Yeah, so applications are open, right? Or about to be open?
Yeah, about to be open, yeah, for Brisbane, yes.
So if you want to check it out, She Codes will obviously try and nab Renee at some point. So it really sounds like there was awareness of the data and the stats. Joe, Linda, and Nicola, I'm curious, have you guys seen the same thing? Is that where it stems from? People actually talking about the stats in your organisations?
Yeah, it's getting better. 5 years ago, I started harassing what was then one of our GMs about diversity and gender diversity specifically, which is of key interest to me. And every time we would have some sort of conference, I'd stand up and ask the question, you know, how are we tracking with that? The third time I asked, he gave me a book to read, which I thought, wow. We've moved on since then, and we no longer hand out books, and we have put programs in place based on statistics and asking our staff what they think, and asking the women specifically, where do you see yourself in the organisation? Where do you see you're going to move to? Do you have a role model that meets what you want to do? And what we found is, no, they don't. The stats that came back from that survey showed that they didn't see themselves at the next level of management and the next level of management beyond that. And so based on that, we had to put initiatives in place. It's called Better Together, to start driving from up and from below pathways that people can see, oh, there is a female that does that thing, or there is a place for me there because I'm being included. So it's based on stats, yes, but it's also based on asking those people that are in the now, where do you see yourself in a year or 2 years, and do you see yourself here because you feel like you belong and you're included? And unfortunately at the time the answer was no, not really, but that gave us the opportunity to put things in place to change that.
And I love the saying recently, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for us, is like giving them role models. And our managing director for Australia actually is a woman, Alex Coates, and she's amazing. But what we don't have is that middle area, that those tech leads, those if you're on service desk or if you're a junior, where do you go to there, as opposed to straight to managing director. And just filling those different shelves with what you want to be, so you can see it.
I'd like to say, on the point about role models, so in For Impact, there's a 50-50% diversity in the executive level, and around demonstrative evidence of seeing those women in those areas make me go, I could do that. And so one of the pathways that For Impact have implemented is a new mentorship program called the Growth Group, and it's all around trying to find mentors within the company that you can learn from and get tips from, and learn how can you get to that next level in your career, and see those role models that exist there. So I think it's definitely around demonstrated evidence of those people in the areas that you want to be in.
And that applies, I think, obviously beyond gender.
Yeah.
It applies to cultural
Absolutely.
diversity as well. I definitely remember not being able to see people on ads when I was growing up who were my colour. And I used to iron my hair to go straight until I burnt parts of it off once. And then, obviously, we've come a long way since then. And it's definitely a refreshing thing to see. Nicola, apart from answering that question, I'd love to tie in also into what you're seeing in the younger students and with educational programs out there. You touched on Girl Shaped Flames, but what else is out there? I know there is the Gateway program, GIST program that ACS run, and that is about the secondary schools, and Sue, you were on our panel last year, so thank you. But also, what are the other things that you think is important for younger people to see in coming up and bringing them through?
I think Joe touched on this to a certain extent, but starting when they're really, really young. So rather than giving girls a pram or a kitchen to play with, give them something to break up, well, break it up and rebuild it again, and be talking to girls like you do to boys, even when they're very, very young. Also, eradicating those stereotypes as well, so starting at that early stage. And a lot of girls, they're taught to be well behaved, to follow the rules, that's why they do really well at school. But then it comes back to, I can't remember who gave the example, they don't apply for the roles because they don't tick 9 out of 10 of the boxes. So it's doing them a disservice. I think the key, and Sue, I'd love to hear what Sue thinks on this, at that age when they're about 12, 13, 14 is when they stop studying STEM subjects, or a lot of them do. So how we can change that, whether it should be compulsory. I don't agree with that. I think people should have choices, but how we can make it much more attractive for girls to study on STEM, computer science-based subjects.
I'm going to read out a stat, because we're going to go down to the other end of more around the ageism side. So we have the older workforce represents only 15% of the ICT workforce. It's obviously well below industry. Are you seeing some challenges given your role in recruitment also in that space? And then I'd love to open it up to the panel to share any views on that.
Now we've touched a bit on this. Women and that imposter syndrome and talking themselves out of things. I find with a lot of older applicants, it's like, well, I'm over 50 and therefore no one will want to employ me. It's like, well, yes, they will. You've got some really, really good skills, but do not go with that kind of attitude because it's kind of defeatist. But go with the benefits of being an older worker, that you've got the war wounds, you've got the experience. Quite often when I recruited a guy who was probably 70, and the feedback on him was he brought calm. When there's a bug, the sky's falling in. It's like, no, it's fine, we can sort this out. So looking at the benefits of the older people, I think one of the key things is the assumption that you will be viewed too old and almost being a self-fulfilling prophecy can be an issue. And I think that's something that we need to overcome as well. And there's as well cross-training within organisations, because I don't know how we're going to fill those 150,000 jobs by 2025. So there will be opportunities, and those people will be culturally right if they're given the opportunities to cross-train as well.
Over to the panel. Are there any thoughts? I know, GroundProbe, you mentioned, Johnny, that there's some work in this space as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've gone on to, there's this massive opportunity there. Like, there's going to be all these jobs that are required, and I think having people who've done things in certain areas, like you can transfer skills to certain things while you might not be a programmer. Like I said, the world's not going to end. And you probably talked about it there. You're not coming from the tech, but you know how to do something, create something. You can actually get people to help you create those things. And I think with the obviously the age, it comes back to the bias, and I think the training to people who are probably hiring and what they're looking for. I think diversity in general, there's that bias language that can sometimes be put in there. Like if you put in a technical role, then you might be isolating all the women, all the older people with different age groups as well, or people with disability as well. And I think having a different perspective for us and what we see, innovation, you need that different perspective from everybody. You can't, discount anyone's view, because people, I've seen it so many times where you're just talking about something, somebody else walks in the room and doesn't know anything, goes, why don't you just do that? These two boxes. And everyone goes, oh, what? We've been talking about this for 2 hours. And there's that different perspective, and I think that everyone, can provide that. And I think it's such a massive opportunity, especially going forward with the job shortages.
I think with the, I guess from the age perspective, there really needs to be a purposeful strategy around education. I feel like that's probably one of the main gaps, like educating organisations on what people can bring to the role, but also educating from a hiring perspective that, yeah, you might have set up the company's database 20 years ago, but it's still relevant, like you can still learn the technical skills and contribute. So I feel like if there's an education from the organisational perspective and then from the hiring perspective, you can come together and start meeting that gap. And that's purposeful, like that requires strategy and actual work to undertake, and it's not easy.
To create a society where being a change maker is okay. You need to start, like Renee said, education is very important, making it flexible is very important, and doesn't matter what age, age, sex, gender, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's okay to ask that question and take that leap. Making a society accept that is one of the most important steps. Because my mom still doesn't understand why I've gone into tech. Because it was a dream that I become a dentist, and I fulfilled that dream. And when I went to do what I want to do, she's like, you have everything, what's your problem? So creating that society is very important, because you need that proximity as you're making that change. You need your people to support you during that journey. So, that sort of mentality to adopt is also very important. And women supporting women or men supporting women at workplace, identifying the talents. That can be the starting point. Yes, you can do it. Take the leap.
And being a bit pragmatic when you're judging them as they go along the journey.
Yeah.
I definitely know it's a hard one for tech startups, especially capital raising. That's a personal passion of mine to disrupt that industry. But so go spread the word on that. But definitely there is a diversity problem there. Joe, do you have any thoughts on this topic around how to, basically cross-skill or whatever it may be, and tools that you guys are using?
So we found recently and with COVID that a lot of the technology that is now really important to our customers have changed. So on-premise, everything's moved to the cloud. People answering phones, do you have a bot that does that? And a lot of these older technologies are done by some of the older people in our workforce. People that have been there doing it for a very long time. And there were two things we could have done. One is said, well, I'm sorry, we don't need you anymore because this technology is no longer relevant to our customers. Or two, set up a program to take what are very skilled people and offer them the opportunity to retrain. And so last year, in the middle of COVID, we set up a program where people who, jobs are coming to an end because the customers are using their services less and less, or two, those that just want to change and move into new careers have the opportunity to retrain. A lot of it's online and self-paced, but we provide guidance and mentors for people in that space. And preferably we keep the skills and we keep the people that know us, and we like to call it the Datacom DNA, that they stay with us and we keep them for as long as possible, and hopefully through that build their loyalty, and then they go out to the masses and say, oh, working for Datacom's awesome. They don't just toss you to one side, they helped me, they saved me, and now I'm doing something new and exciting. So yeah, that's what we chose to do.
Johnny, I might go to you to just talk about, there was some guidelines recently released from the ACS Diversity and Inclusion Committee that you're a part of for organisations. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and obviously where do people find that?
Yeah, definitely. It's on the ACS website, so definitely get a copy. And the reference guide, I'll start off with NDIC. First of all, is a new formed group. Whilst it's been around for about 2 years, we've put together some really strong, leaders in each field. We had everyone from the LGBT community, from autism, but Ashley is very strong and works in promoting disability and the different perspective that you can get from that. We also have very strong female leadership. Wow, amazing. And I think it's such a diverse group, but the reference guide that we put out is for everyone to go. We hear quite a lot of people saying, yes, we want to do diversity, we want to do gender equality. What do we do? How do we do it? Or who is doing it? And I think this guide is really about, no matter where you are on the journey, whether you're starting or you're moving, it's a guide that you can actually take some of these toolkits and actually use them. There's surveys on there you can with links that you can use. There's other tools that you can actually provide. I think we've talked about metrics. Whilst you put these programs out there, how do you keep it honest? How do you create dashboards or metrics that are going to be relevant to your stakeholders, to your boards, to your CEOs, and keep them honest so that we can actually start to track that we're doing progress. So the NDIC reference guide is that trying to help people to make some actionable or put some actionable processes in play to do that. So.
And that's a really important tool, because half the time, even myself, when I don't know what language or what skills, tools and frameworks I need to educate myself in dealing with someone who's obviously diverse from myself, I struggle as well. And I do consider myself a work person. I'm part of the work tribe, but I do try and learn. So those types of frameworks are so important, because you think you know stuff, but when you start to dive into it and see some of the stats and how we'll approach different groups, you realise quickly you really don't know.
One of the things that we sort of found out from doing this exercise is that we're actually really good at diversity from a cultural point of view. We're a global business, having different cultures and mixing them together. But there are probably some other areas we thought we were probably better at that we weren't.
And I think that's part of the exercise of being able to look at the metrics. And you might see diversity in one area being really strong and not really understanding that you'll probably weaken other areas.
Now we're going to change it up and talk a bit about potentially the new risk to diversity, which is now obviously post-COVID life. So we're in COVID life. Everyone has at some point experienced remote work and working from home. What kind of, have you seen that as a positive move for diversity, or has that gone a bit back? Obviously anecdotal experience or opinions is fine.
Myself, a positive. We were pretty lucky because we always had flexible working. So we were still doing a couple of days a week from home. But obviously COVID pretty much locked us down full time. And I think the positive thing that has come out of it is being able to really plan my work around the family and with the family. So before, when I reflect back, I was speaking to someone and it was like every morning getting up really early, getting the kids, rushing them up, getting them dressed, going, okay, you've got to get to before school, I've got to rush for the train, I've got to be there. And it was gotta go. And I'd do my day and I'd come back. And then with COVID, it just sort of relaxed. It was like, okay, get up, we've got our routine. And then now COVID, we've gone back to work. My husband and I now balance the 5 days between us. And we've kept they don't go to before school or after school care anymore. So we've now managed to get up at a reasonable time. It's all relaxed. The kids go to school happy. I log on happy. I go to work happy, and it's just such an amazing change. So yeah, I'm definitely an advocate, and I think the thing is the company has recognised that as well. So there's no push to go back, for more days, or it's just everyone has now got their routine and they're embracing that.
From a diversity perspective, it's a bit harder because, and not just gender diversity, but those people that in the office are quiet and they don't engage so much. And so when everything was remote, it was really hard to get them to come out of their shell and engage. To do it remotely. In the office, it's a little bit easier to go up and sit with somebody and try and draw them out of their shell. And so I found that with my team spread across the board, those that were reluctant to have input because they were shy or they felt that they didn't have the experience were even more likely to withdraw because everybody's staring at you on the screen. It's a little bit easier when you're sitting in an office surrounded by everybody. You can kind of blend in. So that was a little bit tough, and you had to kind of draw them out in a different way, but without putting the spotlight on them.
I've had a bit of an opposite experience to that actually. So with For Impact, we've always had a remote working model, and we've got a lot of our consultants over in the Philippines, and so we're very used to working remotely and online. But with the more quieter people, where we're actually not doing as many video conferences anymore, and it was a team sort of decision because some people just aren't comfortable being on camera, and I found that a lot of the times our developers overseas were happy enough to send you a little ping rather than video call you and kind of get out of their comfort zone. It's really interesting with you.
Yeah, they had a rule where everybody had to have the camera on, which I think
is cool.
Yeah, which I think is counterintuitive because it does make you feel like you're being watched. That's a good point.
I think it was good in a lot of ways. Like when I said, I totally agree. Being a mom, it was very easy. But in a lot of ways, you miss the face-to-face connections as well. From a dentistry point of view, we had to be in the practice, so there is no way. Of course, our consultations were virtual. Of course, that's where the Smiler of AI came to picture, all that kind of thing. But overall, I missed my face-to-face, and I did not like schooling from home. Not my thing. I was okay to work from home, but schooling from home, no. Can't do the log in, log off. One standing up, another one is sitting down. I couldn't do that. So probably we'll have to wait for them to grow up a little bit if schooling from home is an option. But I miss the face-to-face, definitely during that time.
I found schooling from home quite blissful. I'll be honest with you, but mine are 10 and 15. It was like Mummy and Daddy are working, you're schooling, there's no playing and distractions. It was like going back to the 1970s. The tension in my neck just went, going for nice walks. It was lovely.
Next time I'm spending my 6-year-old.
I think it's different when you've got little kids. It's when they're a bit older, it's easier. But also on the Zoom conversation, I found that people that were introverted almost opened up a little bit more if they were in Zoom rooms rather than the big, 20, 30, 100 people. But when you're in Zoom rooms with 3 or 4 people would open up a lot more and actually talk, and actually I found you had more meaningful conversations in those smaller groups. But yes, miss the collaboration as well, and actually meeting people in the flesh, which is quite exciting. So, but I think as well, it's the realisation by a lot of companies that we don't need to be in the office every single day for 8, 9, however many hours a day when this experiment was forced upon us. But I think it will have taught lots of companies, and I think you've all got great examples that we can move forward with that flexibility, which can only be an advantage.
It definitely opens up the barriers, I think, for diversity.
Can I just add that definitely I think positives, and it has some negatives as well. The positives, look, we had mental health catch up, so we put a Zoom meeting and you could come together, anyone could come in there and talk about how they felt, because understanding that some people it was much more harder for them to do that. We had Friday virtual beers or social club. Friday, spend time again, just everyone looking at each other's faces, because there's so many meetings. I think we had heaps of Teams and Zoom meetings daily, and that's probably the negative that I found. That in the workplace, you can walk past someone, they've come out of a meeting, they've gone, just had this great idea, just really tell you probably really quickly. Whereas at home, there's probably a meeting, there's no time to catch up with you because you just booked out for the holiday, so you can miss some of those things. And it's again that personal things where you just walk past one, or you see someone's face and you go, I need to talk to you about something really quickly. It became a 30-minute meeting that there was no, that probably in 2 weeks' time or a week later, and people forget about that. So those are the experiences we had.
And Zoom meetings are quite exhausting. Yes. You think you're doing back-to-back all day, and then,
And the headphones. So it's really interesting. So I think it's something to be conscious of, obviously, as we move forward into some of the barriers and challenges and watching that. I definitely can relate to what you said, Joe. I know a bunch of teams we obviously have at RCL, about 40 tech companies in residence, and a lot of the teams struggle to stay home. People started to actually go to their own preference of people they would go to troubleshoot problems and then isolate others. So it became a bit of a challenge, as some just wanted to get back into the labs, didn't hear about catching anything at that point, but it was very, very difficult. So definitely something to be mindful of. So how, given all your careers in technology and what you're doing to help activate technology in people and attract people into it, what are some of the parting, experience and tips that you can share with the audience tonight? A, on encouraging diversity around them, but also maybe backing yourself a little bit, or helping their organisations challenge the stats. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to.
There you go, Renee. Off you go, Renee.
So I guess the parting thoughts was, I think for yourself is just around continual learning and education, and even if it's like a podcast on the train for like 10 or 20 minutes, or constantly learning new things, and because that challenges your thought process and then what you bring to the organisation and where you want to go. The other bit that I'd also challenge everyone is just listening to the narrative and the conversation that people are having around them. Because I know a couple of times I've heard some amazing women in a meeting going, I'm not technical, but I'm like, you work in technology, you've had a career in technology, you're amazing. You don't need to say you're not technical. And I think just calling that out, because then they reset their brain and go, oh, actually I am technical. And so just supporting others to be able to continue to have confidence in themselves.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
Come on, Joe.
Oh, no, I wrote something, actually I didn't write it, I stole it. I was listening to an Audible, and it wasn't anything to do with diversity, It's actually in Matthew McConaughey's book, but he's listen to him. And that, anyway. He says, we're not here to tolerate our differences, we're here to accept them. We're not here to celebrate our sameness, we're here to salute our distinctions. We're not born into equal circumstance or with equal abilities, but we should all have equal opportunities. As individuals, we unite in our values, so celebrate that. And I thought, that's bloody timely. I'm coming on this panel, and that, I think, sums it up really nicely.
I guess my final thoughts are IT is such a broad and diverse industry, and one of the stereotypes of IT is that it's nerdy and it's antisocial, and I think you don't have to be a coder or a tester or an engineer to have a successful career in IT. You can apply your problem-solving skills, your engagement with customers or business people. Those skills are, not technical skills, but they are very beneficial to solving problems, software problems, and there's room for people who don't have that technical background in IT.
So diversity of roles, absolutely. I think a number of things. Mindset is really important from a diverse perspective, that not having that imposter syndrome, whether you're a woman, whether you're an older person or an older woman, different race, or from a neurodiversity perspective, is seeing past that and applying anyway. And I think the other thing, and I'm delighted that John is here, is bringing the men on the journey. And not asking men for permission, but standing shoulder to shoulder and bringing, because there are benefits for the men as well about improving the diversity. I mean, even looking at the bottom line, if you're an accountant, diversity improves your financial performance. So yeah, we need more men having this conversation and supporting that diversity perspective.
Johnny, on that note.
All right, for me, I talk about this quite a bit, but I agree with everyone else. It's important. The thing that I always say is, just do it. Don't be afraid to fail. Really, I think no matter what you are, if you're going to do it, just do it quickly and fail quickly and learn from it. And I think that's something that we can all take, and I still do to this day. I would probably used to be a little bit cautious that if I do that, I might break this, and then there's $1 million that I might break. But at the same time, there's probably $1 million you might save or make more efficient. So fail fast. And the other one I'd say is, change is never easy, and be that person that that you want to inspire others. Be that person. That can be you to inspire the next generation of people that you want to change. That can be you, and get out there and talk maybe at schools or in other areas, inspire the next generation of women. Let them know that there's someone there that they can see and they can be, or in any other diversity. That's probably my takeaway.
And Padma, as a recent entrant into the tech world, some experience and also some wise words from you.
COVID is a great opportunity. Whatever good, bad, worse that has happened in the world, it's time for us to see it's changed all of us in one way or the other. And it's shown us that as humans, we are all one, all together in this, and embrace it. Our customers, their needs have changed, understanding the market and moving with that and changing your company, your structure, your skill is way more important now than ever before. So you have to make that step, or else you'll be left behind there and the world will keep moving. So you have to be the change the world wants to see and you want to see in yourself.
Great, well said, thank you. So I'd love to open up to questions, and I actually would love to go to Sue first, if that's okay. And the reason for that is because we had an unanswered question here, just on, given your experience, Sue, and what you're doing also as part of you're one of the leaders of the GIST program and where that's going. Can you tell us a little bit about what any encouragement or what can be done about enticing people and more junior people to come into ICT?
I think we're in a changing situation at the moment with the new national curriculum. So Queensland only rolled that out last year. So digital technologies national curriculum is your design thinking, computational thinking and systems thinking. So younger students, right from prep, are starting to have an understanding of what digital technologies is all about. So we're in the second year of that. So I do think it will change. There is definitely that age. We are getting about 50% of our year 8s, a ratio of male female students, and other diverse students in there as well. But definitely in year 9, we see that drop off. And I have, out of my team of 4 specialist digital technologies teachers, 3 of us are female. We really promote ICTs across all industries. We look at pathways, but we still get that drop off. Now, whether that's something to do with that developmental phase of young people, whether the females get sick of those silly boys in year 9, it's very, very hard to pin down. I know there's been lots of talk around parental influence on students. The IT stuff is where the pedophiles are, where the cyberbullying is. You don't want to do that IT. That's one side of it. The other side is that confusion between ICT capabilities and digital technologies curriculum. Well, I can drive my phone, I can drive my iPad, I can turn my laptop on. I don't need to learn anything else. And one of the issues is there's so many different terms that are used, whether it's a role, a job, an industry. So there's that confusion between being a user of IT as a tool and engaging with the curriculum. So I know there's lots of reports currently out there from industry. I haven't put my hands on them, but we do hear lots of different reasons. I know it all. I don't need to study it because I can learn it all at home through to, I can do what I need to. I'm not interested. So it's everything's so individualised these days. It's a different story for every student, why they make their choices. And it's hard to get to the bottom of that. But we definitely see that as a trend. Still.
Interesting, thank you.
Can I ask a question? So, in terms of women studying IT degrees, that was fairly steady until I think about 1983, and then it has plummeted since then. Why do you think that is?
No, I graduated back around then, and it wasn't out there. People didn't understand. I don't know, hard to say. As I said, I just find everybody has a different reason why they don't engage. A lot of it is these days, if I want to do that job, I don't need it. There's not an understanding of how industries have been transformed. So I think that's big. I have students drop digital solutions. What do you want to do? I want to become an engineer. Well, have you actually looked at how engineers are being impacted by digital transformation? No. Okay, well, you might want to do that. So, and it's parents, it's targeting parents, educating parents as well. Often they will influence young people's choices in subjects.
I think also now the new generation are a lot more conscientious, and they see technology as just being technology, and we need to frame it as being beneficial to society, that it's not just a means to an end, but how it's going to save the environment, how it's going to improve life for those people that are on the poverty line, a technology that matches donors with recipients, that sort of thing. I think we need to change how we frame it so that it's actually a conscientious choice to make a difference in the world rather than just being a technical geeky thing. So how we sell it to the up and coming is more about improving the world than building something.
I do like what you were talking about earlier as well around media and movies and the way that technical people are portrayed in those mediums, because if you do look at it, and the majority of people who are the technical hackers or save the world through technology are actually men in a lot of those instances. And I know I had a conversation with a lady recently, or a girl, she's in year 10, and she's like, I want to be an air hostess. I'm like, that's fantastic, it's a great goal, why don't you be the pilot? And she's like, I never thought of that. And it's just like, because if you look at media and mainstream, that's where women are targeted. And it's really trying to shift that paradigm to go, well, actually, guess what? It's 50-50, you know, we're half the world. Let's start focusing in that and the way we're actually communicating to people as well.
Great. Open up for questions.
Yeah, I noticed that in Business Continuity Institute, that there seems to be a lot of women in that particular area that when I go to their meetings, and I think it's really an interesting role that women are drawn to it. But the reason is, I guess, because they're so good at making sure everything's right and in its place. And not that they need to be in that place, but they do such a great job in it. And I don't think it's even recognised a lot of the time. And it encompasses so many parts of technology. And it's a great way of getting out of maybe doing programming, if anybody's doing programming, and going into business continuity as well. I just think it's quite fascinating that I see it. Yeah.
Is that a question?
Well, it's sort of, it's an area that I just don't think it's sort of thought about by everybody, but women do such a great job at it, you know, and not that it is their job, but it's a wonderful thing to see, because I was sort of so surprised that the majority of people there attending their meetings were women.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah, I think a lot of the statistics, and if you dig under that, and I'll just put my own 2 cents in here, but if you dig under that, most of the diversity numbers that are reported from global companies, as an example, GroundProbe, is actually made up of operational roles, because they were brought through as secretaries, caretakers, the people who took the minutes. Joe and I were sharing our story when we were confused by secretaries taking minutes when we were the bosses in a meeting. And that is, I think, where they've fallen into place. So they absolutely are the nurturers, the home providers, and they're used to the multitasking, although it's not technically possible in your brain, but they're obviously very efficient at doing it. So that's why, obviously, because that's the role they play in society. I don't know if there's any other shared thoughts on that.
It's true, like as an account director, I'm responsible for building and owning relationships, and those relationships are between the technical guys, and luckily I have a technical background, so I can talk to them in technical language and then translating that to the customer and making sure that everybody's communicating. And most of the people in the service delivery arm of my organisation are women. So the service delivery managers, the account directors, that relationship side of things, the majority of them are women. You get to the technical side of the business, and that's where we're lacking. But you're right, and that process-driven attention to detail, they've got to have relationships when they're talking about business continuity, because they have to deal with so many different ones, and that's where we really do very well. But if you want to get into the technical arm, that's where you don't see what you want to be, and that's what we need to fix, I believe.
In healthcare, especially, women are seen in most of the nursing roles. It's women. Healthcare, if you look at in a broader sense, it's pretty much, you think it is women dominated, but it's not. The problem is at the leadership level, we don't have that lot of women. Wherever there is empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence, there's women, because it's perfect role. We've been nurtured to take that role naturally. But in the leadership role is where I see that there is still not enough diversity, whether it is women to men, whether it's according to age, or even with respect to migrants. So that's the problem.
I've got some questions over here.
Yes, my question was going to be very similar to what was just spoken about, because we've been talking about encouraging women to get education, encouraging women to apply for jobs, and that's all really important. But what I've experienced as an IT recruiter, for example, is that a lot of employers have issues employing women, employing foreigners, and employing people who are not very typically fitting into this particular role that they imagined. So how do we really deal with that? Because we have a lot of candidates that are women, for example, and we have a lot of candidates who have accents, who come from somewhere else, such as myself as well. So how do we educate employers who are mainly men to actually diverse a little bit and do a step to some different points of view.
Who would you like to raise this with? I was thinking, obviously, Johnny, because you looked at Johnny, and then Nicola.
No, I was really asking a question to everybody who has experience with that, because I feel like it's great to have some women leaders up there, but that's not very common in my opinion, in my experience. Before IT, I worked with wealth management, which is a huge men's club, boys club over there as well. And I really didn't know how to deal with that, to tell them that a female financial planner or a female coder can do as well of a job, if not better, as a male. Or any foreigner can also do that, even though they have an accent, for example. That doesn't mean their intelligence is affected by it.
Johnny, thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think education. I think for us, we're a global company, so we actually need people with these accents and understanding all these cultural differences, because you go through different borders and trying to understand how business is done in these areas. These people are very beneficial because they can cut through certain things, or they can give you information that you just don't know. What can we do about that? I think, for me, again, it's just about diversity, that there's a different point of view, that what works in one area is not going to work in a different, and you could be excluding a whole range of, potential new customers or people that you could be dealing with because you're not getting that perspective. And that, again, like I think you said it before, could affect your bottom line. And again, to me, it just goes back to the innovation piece. You're not going to be innovative as well because you're not getting that viewpoint. And we run internship programs from people from diverse backgrounds, and I can definitely understand sometimes for us it's hard to find certain diverse skill sets that we're looking for, whether it be gender-based or disability-based or even cultural from certain areas. And maybe some of this needs to go back to maybe some government policy, maybe. I know that recently I've been approached a lot by people probably who want to work and are willing to work, and they're here in Australia who have been here and unfortunately can't find a job, like you're saying, because it's too difficult. Especially right now, I think the government's put a big freeze on a lot of those, sort of visas and all whatnot, and these people are stuck here and do want to work, and we have a shortage, but like you're saying, it's hard to get entry.
When I first started looking for a job here, for example, I found that I wasn't even being invited for interviews until I've changed my name, so it seems to be that
Wow.
was evidence for whoever was reading.
When did you come here? How long have you been in Australia?
It's going to be 6 years soon.
I'll do 9 years next. And it's interesting coming here. I mean, obviously I've got a British accent. But getting back to your question, I think obviously discussing the benefits of the potential employer, from talking recruiter to recruiter, as Johnny just said, the diversity of thoughts, the customers are not going to just all be white Australian men. So having that diversity there and all the innovation and creativity and everything that can bring that. But I think also talking from a recruitment point of view, as a recruiter, when you're selecting people, putting women forward, putting people forward with a different name and with an accent and everything, and having them have an opportunity to be represented and get their foot in the door to prove themselves. I can't, as a recruiter, I couldn't understand why, if somebody isn't capable of doing the job, you wouldn't put them forward just because they had an unusual name or because of their gender. I mean, if there was an issue with disability, you'd have to talk to the potential employer about what provisions they have available. But I can't see why you would put people forward.
I have clients, unfortunately, who in between lines said they could work pretty much on mark for a heroin or somebody who's very.
So you have put forward candidates of diverse background, of course, the challenges on the client side.
Yes, so I pushed quite hard a couple of candidates who are very obviously brilliant, just a not called mark.
It it does go to the organisation too, because I know from BHP perspective, it's very well out there that our CEO Dan has said 50-50 gender balance for the organisation by 2025, and that's across the whole organisation, not just technology. And he's really been able to drive that down to all levels of leadership, to the point where when we go out and recruit for a role, we're challenged if we don't have a diverse pool that is coming back to us through the resumes. And if we don't, we actually don't hire just to fill, we actually go out again and say, how can we increase that diverse pool? So yeah, it does really go from that leadership shadow from the top down and that culture of the organisation.
So I don't know if we can help completely with you. You have good money, bad money.
Yeah.
So at sometimes you just have to make the choice not to work with them. Or like the panel said earlier, stats is everything. So if you can demonstrate stats, shame them a bit in a subtle professional way. To me that always has worked. But yeah, pick and choose your clients, because unfortunately there is a scarcity and they're going to have to kind of break some of those barriers internally for themselves. Maybe you can be the mirror to show it to them.
Pauline, can I add
Yes.
something? If you at least have the skin color, you look Aussie. I don't. And my name is unusual as well, right?
My husband
Yeah.
has a different
So when I applied, I came from India in 2007. I finished my graduation. I came to Australia. I started my first job as a sterilization nurse. I was a qualified dentist, and there's a procedure to become a dentist here. So what do I do in the meantime? I'm always curious, I'm always learning. So I was like, no problem, let me start somewhere. And I probably must have sent at least 100 applications. Not a single one was accepted. I then one day went knocking on the door. I said, I can do it, give me a chance. And again, the same problem has now come up because of COVID. We don't have so many pitching events, and you can't travel to the US or Singapore. So this came in discussion with Laura from Connect Creative. We've now made our pitch deck into a video deck. So it's all about, if those people are really hungry to get that job, how can you move out of your comfort zone to advertise yourself to that employer? You pretty much have to sell yourself for that first chance. So it's all about thinking outside that box and making things happen.
But that's interesting as well. So with candidates, I know use video interviewing software. So on paper, they don't look great, but you know because you've spoken to them, they've got that energy, that personality, that culture fit. They're really, really good. And do the video with them, put them forward, and the candidate goes, oh my God, the client says, I really like this person. On paper, no. Yes, in personality, so that they haven't been rejected. So maybe you could try using video software and getting them across and proving that they would be right.
Did you have a question, was it? No.
I just want to ask a question about whether we are actually measuring the right thing in diversity. And if I may ask this very frankly, but with deep respect, just say an organisation has a target of 50% females, 50% males. I apply for a role, but because of the emphasis on the target of getting more females, which is great, into the role, I would be excluded from the role because I'm male. So I'm just trying to understand here whether in fact looking at, for example, gender targets may not be in a way causing part of the problem, or age, or I don't know, origin, country of origin, or the country of birth.
Yeah, and that's interesting because we literally just had this conversation last week at our inclusion and diversity training, and exact same conversation. So I think the first bit is that men aren't purposely wouldn't be excluded. It's making sure that we've got a pool that is representative of a diverse pool. So I think traditionally in technology we'd end up getting pretty much 90-95% men applying and getting through, where now it's like, well, making sure that we've got 50% of women and 50% men applicants, and we also have a gender diverse panel that also goes and does the interview. So it's changing those processes. In regards to the targets, which you were just mentioning about, it has also been proven is what doesn't get measured, doesn't get done. And it's been, there's been so many years that we have been talking about trying to increase that pool of women in the industry. And it just hasn't happened fast enough. So the thing is, once you start putting that stake in the sand, then you're actually opening yourself up to more strategies about how do we look at increasing it. So it's not about, do it at all costs. It's still about the right person, but it's like, let's change our strategies on our recruitment and bring it in, and then actually trying to be able to start shifting the paradigm and the dial.
Yeah, it is a tough one because you want to know when you're hired that you're being hired because you're the best person for that job, not just because you look great in heels, which you might do. Not judging at all. And that's the flip side, because as a female, when you get hired, that's what you want to believe, that you've been hired because you're going to be the person that's going to rock that position. But I think what Renee and others say, and myself believe, is that it's removing, if there were two equal candidates and one's a female, and generally they'd go, oh, she's probably going to have kids. She probably wants to stay home. Hopefully what we're doing is we're driving a wedge in that sort of thinking, and now they're like, well, actually I really do want a female in this role, and they're tied. And so therefore, whether or not she's of breeding age or whatever, that's who I want to go with. And it's kind of trying to drive out some of the bias by creating a different type of bias if you're looking on the outside.
Thank you for asking that. It's a really important question. I was going to lay it back, then I'll come forward again.
Hi, I'm really glad to hear about this diversification of with regards to age, culture, gender. But in my case, I have stopped work 5 years ago due to health issues, and now I'm trying to get back to the industry, which I'm finding it hard to do. I've been applying properly for a year now for jobs, and I can't do it. I can't get anything available, for job for myself. So I've been doing, with the COVID thing as well, there's a lot of online courses and doing that. Now I'm actually enrolled in data analytics. I'm 62, and I find it hard, maybe because of my age, that I can't go back to the industry anymore. So my question is there any companies that do mentoring, even though in a voluntary term, just for me to get back to the industry again? I think that I still have lots of things to offer. I've got diversity of knowledge, I've got very security. I've been a systems analyst, and now I can't go back. So if there's anyone or any company that offers mentoring for older people, can somebody let me know?
What was your name, sorry?
Lydia.
Lydia?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lydia. Great question. I'll open up to the panel, and then the audience, anyone in the room here who has an opportunity for Lydia, please come and see her after this, but to the panel.
I'd just like to say, Lydia, thank you for being vulnerable. You've taken a big step by showing up and seeing, putting yourself out there. So I wish you well.
Are there any
I'll just add to that. Look, we definitely take interns or mentoring, and I do a lot of mentoring as well. And I will actually take people through interviewing, resume, and then try and look at jobs as well if we cannot place within the company. So I do think that there are others out there that I know that will assist and will do that. I would say to you, just, keep on putting yourself out there. And I think you're doing the great things with online learning and making yourself better. But there are definitely companies and people out there who can assist you. Even maybe recruiters as well.
I feel like you've just highlighted a gap. Like I'm just sitting here when I was listening to you and thinking we have a graduate program, where we bring graduates through, but it's almost like the reverse, like having a program. So yeah, just I guess food for thought.
I wish there's somebody who looks at people who have stopped working and want to go back to work again.
We're going to have to, because we're not creating enough people to fill the roles. And so any sensible organisation is going to have to look for people with those skills, regardless of age or gender or race. And I think it's great, just don't give up, because we need people like you. So
Yes, I don't give up, that's why.
And Lydia, well done for coming here, and I think it's great going out and about and meeting as many people as possible, because I think that's how you're going to differentiate yourself as well. But do connect with me on LinkedIn and let's have a conversation about your CV and your interview skills and what you're looking for, and I can give you a strategy to help you there.
I was going to add to that as well, we can connect to, because I think I know the company that would be able to help you.
Perfect. Nice. Two opportunities.
Back yourself, Lydia. Well done. You just demonstrated it. Okay, so we have SJ.
Yeah, so I was interested to hear the panel's thoughts and positions on positive discrimination. A lot of people and organisations will set initiatives for quota and diversity, but then there's almost a stance of a bit of fear around, but we don't discriminate. What are your thoughts, and this goes out to each of you, how do you feel about positive discrimination, and how do you apply them, or do you not apply them within organisations or positive?
Can I take, does everyone have the same question? Yes. Good.
You could repeat the question for people.
I'm here. So how do people deal with positive discrimination? Can I have a scenario as an example for people?
Sure.
Like
So, for example, in recruiting, you might say that you want to encourage women into a role. You've recognised that there aren't women in the role already, there aren't role models, and there's a lack of pipeline, and it's that chicken and egg scenario. So, to solve that problem, you might give preference to a candidate that may not have quite as much, so maybe they've got 5 years experience, whereas another candidate has 15 years and a bit more of a specialisation. How do you feel about giving that person who is a woman but technically has not quite as much tick boxes as the man, that role? And technically that is a form of positive discrimination, because you are discriminating, but for a positive benefit.
Yeah, I just think it's revisiting those tick boxes. Because we're talking about experience in the industry and how long you've been in, 5 years versus 15 years of experience. But what does those tick boxes consist of? Because there's a lot of the time, we're looking at those soft skills and that culture component, and that traditionally hasn't been part of those tick boxes. So we've actually been discriminating for a long time, because we're going, well, if you don't have 15 years of experience, then we don't even want to entertain your resume. Whereas now we're actually opening up that tick box to go, well, we don't just need A, B, C, D, and we're actually reducing the time of experience for everybody. So it opens the doors for men, women, I guess cultural disability. So it opens actually wider than just gender. And it's going, well, what do we need for our team? And it's not just the technical skills. It's that, we need someone to bring in some thought, leadership, some problem solving, and all those things that weren't there before. So I feel like it's almost like an oxymoron, like the positive discrimination. But I feel like it's just revisiting those check boxes and actually opening the pool to a wider group of people, as opposed to excluding one.
Absolutely, and you can do the same thing for 15 years, or you can do something awesome every year for 5 years. So the 5 years person could well be better. But I think the other thing that you're saying as well is, should you give the role to the woman because she's a woman, essentially? And my belief is not if the other person's better for the job. It should be that this woman has been allowed, or the diversity has been allowed the opportunity to put herself forward and be judged. And I think it's creating those opportunities with the targets and getting people involved. But I can't remember which one of you said that you don't want to feel like you were hired just because of your gender. You want to be hired because you were the best person for the job. And I have clients when I say, oh, we've got Daphne here. Oh, brilliant, a woman. And it's like, look, just calm down. We need to make sure that she's the perfect person for the role, not just because she looks good in high heels, as you say. So yeah, I think it's an interesting conundrum.
I think I disagree with that, but
that's what we're here to do. Is
I think it's my discourse. I think I was a diversity card in a role, and I absolutely don't care. Because I have a bunch of females that follow me who are my colour, my hair, don't fit in the box, wear colourful, outrageous clothes, and I want them to come through. So I don't care if I'm picked for my diversity card. In fact, I will wear that loud and proud and go on every single, tiki tour that I need to do to show my nieces that it's a-okay. So we've been doing positive discrimination in the financial services industry for many, many years, and it's regulated. So if we have to do it for now in this industry because we're trying to change the game in our society, so be it. Oh well.
We should all have different viewpoints. And I love your colourful clothing.
Thank you. I think we have another question in the front, yes.
There was a comment before about women being in a lot of operational roles, whether that's business continuity planning or general administration or so forth. As part of my role, my husband and I have an IT consulting and training company. We do a lot of community education talks. And of late, I've been talking to some groups within the trades and construction. And one in particular comes to mind. There's 10,000, it's a Facebook group, 10,000 tradie wives. So hubby or partner or is on the tools. And these are the women who have to make sure, are often, quoting, ordering, booking. One of them said to me today, I don't even ask hubby. He would just start, it was about cybersecurity, we were talking about backing up for email, just like, he would be asking me what the hell if all these emails disappeared, so I've just got to work out how to get it done and protect it. And the feedback that I've had from these, it's a basic cybersecurity awareness, okay, what are some practical strategies? But the feedback I've had has been really positive, and it has me thinking that, okay, if women are predominantly in operational roles, well, maybe that's just where we need to go. Because if we talk about, in this instance, I've spoken about cybersecurity with a focus on their business, but they might decide, oh, I'm interested, I want to know more. And whether it's, construction or trades or other professional organisations or women's groups, perhaps that's where we need to be focusing in terms of creating opportunities and to reach older women or women who are currently in a break with kids, that maybe that's where we focus, because we've spoken about we have that focus on teaching kids as they come up, and I lecture at university, and we're hitting lots of different groups, but this is a group, older women and men and women with kids are a group. How do you access them? Maybe this is the easiest way.
Thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say that the women that are in the operational roles absolutely rocket it. It's almost like a natural ability. And at least in my experience, they're better than most of the men. And it's because their organisational and relationship skills are they just rock at it. I think it's really important that as we bring people into technology, no matter what their age is, that we give them exposure to all the different parts of technology. So that includes the operations, and maybe they've got a bent for that. My niece won a place in a graduate program, and she went through 3 of the 4 positions, and by the end of the 3rd one she goes, I hate technology, I never want to do it. She had a degree in it, and she had a degree in this, and then she goes, I never want to do technology ever in my life. Then she went to the 4th one, which was a different type of technology, where she was more about that operations and doing projects and stuff, and now she loves it. So I think it's about giving the exposure to the different areas and then allowing them to choose where they go. But I also think previously we had been pigeonholed, that we do the relationship side of it as opposed to the technical, whether it's pigeonholed or whether there's just not the opportunities, however we got here. It's giving them the opportunity to try everything and then selecting for themselves what they want to do.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in terms of giving opportunity, but if we're going to, you know, 150,000 and we don't have to start looking elsewhere, maybe this is the time to start getting creative.
Oh, as in to go and harness the tradies wives group.
Well,
as an example.
As an example, that perhaps, you know, we
I agree.
will find.
I agree 100%. Digital literacy should be spread across all of these groups, because that's where we need to find the resources. It's not like people are flying in, apart from someone in the room who just flew in, free trade. I agree. That's what we should be doing. Yes.
At the beginning of the meeting, you sort of had an opening, you talked about cognitive diversity, and I was just interested in hearing a few more examples of what that looks like and feels like.
So I think that was me talking about cognitive diversity. So, for example, different personality types, neurodiversity, all that kind of aspect. So, taking different opinions and viewpoints rather than something that's concrete, like, for example, gender, race, etc., etc. So, bringing in diversity of thought and the way that you approach things. Does that answer your question?
I like the introvert-extrovert example, that's really good.
So Nicola, would that be like, for example, having a storyteller in a team, a programmer in a team, a dentist in a team, psychologist in a team? Is that what you're talking about?
Well,
that's extreme, of course.
That's a good example. So bringing in those different aspects and having that blend and that balance to bring the best out in everyone. Like a husband and wife team, you wouldn't normally get them to be identical. They manage each other and complement each other. So again, on a wider scale within your team and maximising everybody's different talents and personalities and approaches, but also appreciating them as well, not disregarding them.
Having healthy discourse. There you go.
Exactly. Agree to disagree.
Agree. So we're going to wrap up there. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all your questions, but feel free to approach the panel after this. I just want to say thank you so much to our panelists for coming on tonight and answering some very good questions. Thank you to the audience also for the wonderful conversation and questions that came through, and thank you to Steele as well for chipping in. So a round of applause for our panelists.
Discussion tonight. It was fantastic to hear all of your amazing insights, your personal journeys, and hearing how well your organisations are actually doing in the diversity and inclusion space. That was very heartening to hear those examples. So please stay on now and continue the conversation over some drinks and some meals. Thanks again to our presenter, Lou, here for each of you today. And we look forward to you joining the next ACS and ask the element. Thank you.